I hereby call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, January 5th, 2026. Mr. City Manager, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Groff?
Here.
Councilmember Bauer?
Here.
Councilmember Strawn?
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Here.
Mayor Rowe?
Here. And with us at the dais, we have our City Attorney, Rachel Tierney, who's on my right at the very end, and City Manager Pat Trudgeon is on my left at the other end, and we'll make other introductions of participants in the meeting as agenda items come up. I would note for members of the public that we do have extra copies of the agenda on the back table under the big clock by the back door. If you do want a copy for your own reference to track the progress of the meeting. We also do have a big 3-ring binder with all the meeting materials that the council will be considering this evening, and that is one copy to share amongst all of you, so we'll leave it to you to work it out amongst yourselves. But we want to make sure you're aware of that. We'll go through, if there is anyone here for public testimony, we'll go through the rules of the road for that as we get to those opportunities on the agenda. The only other thing I'll note is that if you do have a cell phone, please do try to silence it or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt our meeting this evening. And with that, we will ask folks to stand, if you're able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, that brings us then to our first decision of the evening, which is to consider approving tonight's agenda. And I'll just check, as we always do, to start with city staff. Mr. Trudgeon, are there any changes that staff requires making to the agenda this evening?
Mr. Mayor, staff has no changes to the agenda.
All right, and then we'll check with members of the council. Does anyone from the council have any changes they would like to make to the agenda, or any consent items that you would like removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration? All right. And then we'll do a check with members of the public. If you happen to be here for an item in section 10 of tonight's agenda, which is at the end, it's known as our consent agenda. These items are things like approval of our payments and general non-controversial contracts and designating our legal newspaper and bank repositories and things like that. If you're here with a question or comment about one of those items, this would be a good chance to let us know, because we can move that item earlier in the meeting for your question or comment, and then you don't have to stay to the very end. So is there anyone here for any of the items in section 10 of our agenda at the end, which is otherwise known as our consent agenda? And once again, if you need to check a copy of the agenda, we do have extra copies on the back table. It does not appear to be the case that we have anyone here for item in section 10, which keeps our record intact, I believe. That being said, we have no changes to tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. That passes unanimously. We have our agenda for this evening. Next on our agenda is our first opportunity for public comment this evening. We always do provide opportunities for members of the public to speak or ask questions about agenda items as they come up on our agenda. But we also do want to provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that are either related to city business or of interest to people in the community, but aren't on this evening's agenda. And so that's this opportunity now. I see we have somebody who's come forward, so we'll just quickly go through the rules of the road for public comment for benefit of members of the public. We do have rules set up by a council vote for our council meetings, one of which is related to public comment, and that includes a 10-minute time limit per speaker, which I try to enforce generously and gently. Did I say 3 minutes? What did I say?
You said 10.
10? Oh my goodness, no, it is 3. I can't just unilaterally change it turns out. Somebody noticed
You're
this.
the mayor.
So it is 3 minutes. I apologize. It's the first meeting of the year. We'll get the hang of this. And we ask that comments or questions get directed to the City Council. If there are questions that require follow-up, we may not be able to answer those this evening, especially under the general comment, but certainly we'll see if we need to direct staff to do follow-up in that case. If you can identify yourself at the beginning of your comments by your name and either your address or your street for the public record. And then finally, if you have a name that may not be one that we're readily able to guess the spelling of, when you're finished with your comments, if you just want to write your name on the clipboard beside the speaker's microphone there, that will make sure we get it spelled correctly in the official record. And with that, we welcome our first speaker this evening under general comment.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Rowe and council members.
My name is Mindy Erickson, and I live on Mid Oaks Lane. 4 beautiful oak trees shade my backyard from the Aldine Street right-of-way. I love these glorious trees. Before the Aldine process started last April, I didn't know much about construction risks to trees. I spent time educating myself, and what I learned surprised me. As the city engages in a new path feasibility study, please think with me about tree-safe construction practices. My research about construction risks to trees was summarized in the October 27th meeting packet, page 57, and pages 80 and 81, but past meeting discussions have overlooked what experts describe as the most effective practice for safe construction around trees. What is that expert advice? In short, experts say don't do it. Instead, they advise placing protective fencing around each tree or group of trees at the canopy edge or drip line. Drip line fencing effectively keeps construction activities far enough away from trees to prevent invisible, irreparable root damage. Page 80 illustrates how Falcon Heights is using properly placed fencing to protect trees from construction. Oak trees are a particularly valuable species to our area's ecosystem, and oaks are also particularly vulnerable to invisible root damage and eventual death from construction disturbance within their drip lines. Construction disturbances include compaction, placing foreign materials over roots, and grading that cuts away roots and soil or fills in soil over roots. A small city grading project about a decade ago in the Aldine right-of-way may foreshadow the outcome of path development in this narrow, sloping setting. That project disturbed the ground within the drip lines of 2 large trees, killing both trees within a couple of years. The dead oak is still visible from Mid Oaks Lane, standing as a reminder that even small construction projects kill trees. Page 81 has a picture of the oak tree killed by past grading. Many of the oak canopies span the entire width of the right-of-way, so there is no realistic construction corridor that is outside of the drip line of the oak trees. Tree preservation has been a point of stakeholder agreement throughout this process. If the new path feasibility study affirms that construction activities within oak tree drip lines will kill oak trees or even risk damaging roots and eventually killing oak trees, please choose tree preservation over tree devastation to develop a path just a quarter mile from existing paths on Fairview and Snelling. Once path development kills these oak trees, we will never get them back. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak during general public comment this evening? It's seeing no one, then we'll move on with our agenda. We appreciate the comments we received. And we will move to then recognitions and donations. And we do have one of those this evening, which is a proclamation related to Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Roseville. And I'll read the proclamation, and then a motion to approve would be in order. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the City of Roseville recognizes and honors the work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the chief spokesperson for nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement, which successfully protested racial discrimination in federal and state law, and whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Was jailed and arrested numerous times for speaking out against racism and discrimination and for trying to help African Americans to register to vote. And whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in December of 1964 for those efforts, and whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, because of his fight for equality and civil rights for all, and whereas an act of Congress of the United States in 1983 declared the third Monday in January officially to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And whereas each year Americans across the country answer that question by coming together on Martin Luther King Day to serve their neighbors and communities in a variety of ways, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Roseville hereby declare January 19th, 2026 to be Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the city.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Councilmember Strawn, I believe seconded by Councilmember Groff. Any discussion on the motion? I should note, I did cut off my reading a little earlier. It says also that the city encourages all citizens to join together to honor Dr. King by committing to volunteering in the community, especially on that day. So with that, if there's no discussion on the motion, all those in favor of adopting that proclamation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? That passes unanimously. That proclamation is approved. There were no items removed from the consent agenda, so we can move right into our business items. And our first business item this evening is to consider approval of the Public Works 2026 work plan, which is one of our many annual events that we will be undertaking this evening at our first meeting of the year. And we're joined this evening by our Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer, Jennifer Lowry, to bring this plan, or this year's plan, before us for our consideration. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'll present the Public Works transportation, or the plan for Public Works for 2026. This was presented to our commission on November 25th, and it represents approximately $9.6 million of work that we hopefully deliver this year. That is in addition to the build out of the city campus plans. So one of, I think, the largest work plans we've had dollar-wise and project-wise. Before I get into it, I'm just gonna steal a bit of time for accomplishments and to, toot our own horn a little bit, to show all the things that our staff has been doing this year. We've processed a number of permits, which involves a lot of review and coordination with other people, a lot of inspections, and keeping construction projects, both private and other agencies, moving throughout the year. For example, 267 building permits reviewed. We've resurfaced 5.1 miles of roadway this year, and added one new pathway segment, a short little segment, but that was through from the western cul-de-sac into Tamarack Park. We've made drainage improvements at 4 locations, including with the county at Hamlin and Clamar. Lined 2.1 miles of sanitary sewer, and a lot of those were very large pipes that cross under Snelling and other larger roads, so that was a significant project as well. Also, we've been implementing our updated street light policy, and so that included installation of 27 new street lights, mostly at intersections and crosswalks, and replaced 15 lights. And of the 24 wayfinding signs, we got 10 installed this year. The rest will be done in the spring. Maintenance was really busy. The snow events were low last winter, so we only had 17 inches total of snow, which 2 years prior was like 8 feet. So with the lack of snow, they got a lot else done. They're 2 years ahead on sanitary and storm inspections. They got almost 33 miles of boulevard trees trimmed. And they've also helped out on like the Hawkins volunteer cleanup event on the bottom. There's a picture of volunteers later. So even community events to improve our lands. I'll talk a little bit more about the meter and radio replacements, but they did 183 radio replacements last year. We had 27 water main breaks, and this is as of 12/17. I think we've had like 7 more since then, but the water fund is getting healthy, and we're gonna work on that.
How does that compare to typical years, just generally,
I
up
think-
or down?
That's been, I think it was like in the 20s last year.
Okay.
Yeah. So sustainability, there were a ton of events last year. Continuing with some of the programs, the Green Step, we're still at a step 5, working on implementing the Green to Go ordinance and engagement, but also kicking off the climate equity action plan. That was kicked off at the Wild Rice Festival in September. And a lot of the other events, there were 19 attended. 12 of those were new last year from prior years. And a handful of them will continue that were very successful. But some of the new ones last year were Green to Go Packaging Fair, several engagement events, native plant sale, a bee education seminar, and the clothing swap. Noelle served on 10 advisory committees and councils. She attended 6 conferences, and she collaborated with the U of M students on a dark sky policy research, and then also gave 4 ad hoc presentations to other local organizations and cities that kind of look to Roseville as a leader in what we're doing. Recycling was a big year for switching over to a new contract, switching from Eureka to Waste Management, which started on July 1st. And we also rolled out roughly 12,000 city-branded carts that replaced the Eureka cart. So now we own them, and it can make contracting with future vendors a little bit smoother. Cleanup Day still was pretty successful at 337 visits. And I always like some of these statistics of 2 tons of electronics and 73 mattresses. I don't know, some of that stuff just is kind of impressive. And Shredding Day was 16 tons of paper that were brought in addition to the recycling done by Eureka, which was 2,500 tons. There was also some more project planning for dredging a Willow Pond, which you can see pictures of on the bottom there, and core samples of how much muck has settled in there. Let's see. So we finished the first report of our lead-free Roseville report to the state. So we had 92% of services reported, which is pretty amazing. Of just over 10,300 services, and we're doing inspections and continuing to try to get to the last of those. Thus far, we only have 28 of those roughly 10,000 that are lead. Our policy for the lighting policy was updated to include illumination standards. We got our bike plan drafted and the Hamlin demonstration, which is kind of the picture in the middle, out in the field, and we'll put it up again next spring. And so comments for those closed at the end of November, so we're compiling those, and we'll get a final copy to take before you guys in the next month or 2, I think. We also worked with MnDOT to have a safety plan completed, so we were one of the, I think it was 4 municipalities statewide that they piloted to develop these plans. We rolled out an Adopt a Streetscape program. I'm not sure if anyone's used it yet, but we have the application and a process to do it if anyone wants to maintain some plantings in public right-of-way. We had several grants that have helped residents, water rebate grants to 69 homeowners just in 2025 alone. We are doing a new pilot on an equity water rebate for toilets alone. It's up to $600, and there's $4,500 given out for that. And we gave out $53,000 for sewer replacements. We get a lot of traffic safety concerns and requests, both on city roads and county roads, and the ones that we have jurisdiction of, we've made some signage changes and looked at some sight lines and appreciate people reaching out about that. We've done a few vacations of unneeded right-of-way and did over 1,000 hours of engineering services for Falcon Heights. And we continue to work on the strategic plan with other departments. Just a couple of pictures. So on the top is Dale Owasso Lift Station, which was rehabbed last year. So before, during, and after construction. And then on the bottom is before, during, and after of the Tamarack pathway from the western cul-de-sac into Tamarack Park. And then most importantly, all the people that made it happen, both in the office and in the field, and volunteers and interns. We had an amazing group of commissioners, and we had residents come out and talk to us about our projects and stuff. So it took a lot of people to talk through and make all the projects happen. So on to the proposed. Like I said, this is approximately $9.6 million. And it addresses infrastructure maintenance needs and improvement needs of all the functional groups within Public Works. So I'll walk through those kind of one at a time. The city owns 123 miles of roadway, and this year, we intend to do some work on about 7 miles of that for about $2.7 million. So that is milling and overlaying, reclaiming or reconstructing the street, and that includes curb repairs and ped ramp upgrades and such. So you'll see the various areas highlighted on here, and all of these will have additional engagement with residents and notices. And this is what we're planning right now, assuming that there's favorable bid prices, and that we can move forward with this work. I'll just keep running through, and then if you guys have questions, we can come back and talk about any specifics. All right, there we go. We continue to maintain and expand our nearly 100 miles of city pathways. 5 new pathways are proposed this year. Some of these are carryovers from previous years. So finishing the Twin Lakes Trail Phase 2, which is just south of Owasso Pond, doing Lexington from Conroe B to Trunk Highway 36, a little path between the Wagner and Western Avenue cul-de-sacs, Hamlin Pathway, adding a pathway from C to C2 along the county road that we're delivering the county's pavement project as well, so we can narrow up the road and minimize impacts to residents. So that one's quite a big project. And also pathway segments that we've demonstrated along Kea Park. We have a meeting coming up next Tuesday night for that. And so a lot of different pieces around. Let me see, I need to scroll for my notes. Maintenance will also resurface pathways in Villa Park, in Central Park around Bennett Lake, portions in Materion Park, and along Terminal Road. We'll also be resurfacing 2 small parking lots, the dog park off of Larpenter Avenue, and also a small parking lot off of Stuber Road near Reservoir Woods. I'm really irritated that my text boxes aren't fitting properly like they did on my screen. I'm going to pretend like I don't see that. Okay, so lighting, like I mentioned too, this is part of our 5-year plan to implement throughout the city our new street light standards and at intersections, curves, crosswalks, etc. The plan for next year is to install about 45 new streetlights on the east area of the city, highlighted in yellow, and as well as a handful that were scheduled for 2025 but postponed due to budget. The existing enhanced streetlights along Long Lake Road and Lincoln Drive will be replaced and extended on Lincoln. So the more commercial areas. And in addition, there's conversations happening with the Owasso Hills neighborhood to determine if they want to do a petition and elect for maintaining their enhanced street lighting. And that, if they do elect for enhanced street lighting, that would be the only assessments that are scheduled and know about at this time for next year. For sanitary sewer, similar to past years, we kind of plug along on different station upgrades. So Cohansey is the next one, and then we'll begin design for the Center Street lift station for 2027. And we're kind of at the end of our 10-year plan. In 2014, we hired a consultant to evaluate all our lift stations, come up with a maintenance plan, and we've been slowly working through that plan. That's giving us, kind of ideas of what to do at Cohansey, what Center Street needs. And so we're gonna, we already have hired a consultant for that. That should be finished in the next couple of months to kind of give us some guidance on what the next 10 years would look like for maintenance of lift stations, both storm and sanitary sewer lift stations. We have about $1.2 million of another lining project to be done this year. And that will involve some more of the larger pipes. Of the 143 miles of sanitary pipe right now, we have about 50% of that lined. So we're just going to keep working on that. And we also have heard that we will be getting another $63,000 awarded for the private I&I grant program that has been really popular. There's about over 20 on the wait list, and we sent out almost 200 letters to homeowners too with roots in their system. So once I have an executed agreement, that will be online and people will need to reapply, and it's first come, first serve. But people have very much appreciated that because that can be a very expensive and not fun repair. Our water main projects, the water fund is returning to much healthier numbers. So with the 1.2 million in the budget this year, it's mostly going to general repairs. The water main that will be enlarged on Hamlin in coordination with our pavement and trail project. This is also being partially paid by Arden Hills, mostly paid by Arden Hills for that upgrade. And then also some water main replacement on Walnut from Rose Place down to the railroad. We have the booster station improvements that we've been talking on and off about for a couple years. We do intend to do roof repairs or a new roof, noise attenuation inside, some security improvements, and also solar installation on top of the new roof. I mentioned the meter and radio replacements for water main. So AMR is auto meter reading, like the radio. So we're moving to a new provider, and we intend over the next 5 years to replace all 10,000. So it's going to start hitting that hard this year once we get all the kinks worked out between the software systems and stuff. And then we do have some water efficiency rebates left in the equity for toilet replacements. Storm sewer, we will have storm sewer repairs to structures and stuff done with our PMP and street work. There is storm sewer funding going to the Twin Lakes Trail Phase 2 because there's a large culvert that's going in for that work. Cohansey and Marion Street drainage improvements are coordinated too with our PMP. We'll have some pipelining in those areas, and Dale and Wilder as well. There will be some maintenance work to the Bennett Lake waterfall. St. Croix and Willow Pond maintenance, like I mentioned before, we'll do some dredging. And Willow Pond doesn't always look as muddy as the upper corner. That was after a large rainfall, but there is a lot of sediment that gets to that lake or that pond. And then continue to work on the City Ditch 2 vegetation and future planning for that. In addition to the lift station analysis that I mentioned as a part of sanitary sewer. So, as is mentioned in the accomplishments, the 5-year contract for waste management started on July, and we'll continue to work out the transition and make sure contract requirements are being met for that. And as is noted for several years now, prepare for the Ramsey County Curbside Organics Pickup Program. Ryan would like to expand recycling opportunities at Cleanup Day. For example, bulkies, which is like couches, larger furniture, and places that could kind of tear that down and recycle it. And evaluate and expand opportunities for recycling in parks. And then continue very successful events such as the annual Shredding Day. Noel, sustainability efforts in 2026 will center around completing and adopting the Climate Equity Action Plan and transitioning into an implementation phase of that plan. Our work for that may change based on what the community members identify as priorities during community involvement. There is a survey out for that right now that closes fairly soon, I think. I want to say the 7th, but I'm not sure if that's true. And also continuing the popular new projects introduced in 2025, those newer events, including the clothing swap and native plant sale, in addition to a lot of the engagement that consumes time. I do want to say it is before New Year's, we had hired successfully 6 interns for next year, which is, I don't know if that's the most we've ever had, but I think having them all hired before the New Year's is a record. And so kind of excited to have all those people come on board and help us deliver all these projects and programs. The largest project to date for the city is the city campus master plan implementation. So this year intend on finalizing the design of Concept C for the licensed Passport Dance Center, Passport Center and Dance Studio. I don't know if the acronym is easier or just saying the words, but and the Maintenance Operations Center. So it would be, this next step would be getting to biddable plans and then awarding those contracts for construction, which would involve site preparation and grading of the new licensed passport center. And then, any changes needed to the park before they can move to demo of the strip mall. There's a lot going on from other agencies as well. So MnDOT will have resurfacing and some other access changes on Snelling. Not really access changes in Roseville, but Snelling from 36 to Gray Fox, and that will include them constructing the pathway on the west side. So that's great news that they're doing that with the project. Additionally, they'll be resurfacing Trunk Highway 280 from Wabash to I-35W and only kind of impacting PayCal there, but that's all being coordinated. And there will be another project in about 28 following behind that with more work. Ramsey County has a ton going on. They've also been ramping up staff to deliver it all. That said, we're delivering the first bullet. So Hamlin from C to C2, like I said, it's turning into a larger project. It's full depth reclaim, so it'll work out well in the end. We can really minimize impacts and get a full trail, 8-foot trail all the way along there, which I think will be highly used. They'll be doing the 4 to 3 lane conversion of County Road C from Lexington to 35E. And then you'll notice a couple bullets later, the bridge on C over the railroad is likely to follow the next year. There was an attempt to get them to go together, but just the timing of environmental reviews and stuff and railroad and Excel lines does not play well with that. So in addition, the county will be milling and overlaying Fairview from Larpenteur to County Road B2, and that will also include the signal at B and Glick. And so we will have some cost participation with that, and we'll be making some, they'll be narrowing the road and changing up that intersection a little bit so we can get some better pathways along there. They'll be working on, like I mentioned, the design of the bridge over the railroad, design of County D from Fairview to Cleveland, design of Victoria Pathway from County Road C to Harriet in Shoreview, and then design of Rice from Wheelock to B. That's also kicked off. So Wheelock and St. Paul to County B, and that's a 2028 project. The Metro Micro Transit pilot is still underway in Roseville, and it sounds like it's doing really well. It started off a little slower than the Woodbury one, but the last numbers had more ridership, so that's really good to hear. And G-Line construction will begin this year as well. Watersheds have some work. They're working on a targeted watershed program, and also Godfrey Pitt working on updates to it, but also a multi-agency agreement to kind of clarify roles and responsibilities. So there's a lot. There's not a shortage. It's not going to be boring. Stop there if there's any questions, and then also the requested action is just a motion to approve the plan.
All right, thank you. Questions from the council? Councilmember Strawn.
And just one question that came up when I was reviewing. So the dog park, isn't that essentially a Ramsey County amenity? And so I was curious to know why we were involved with the resurfacing of that.
It's a good question. Does Jesse know
I
the
believe
answer
there's
to
some
that?
joint responsibility there.
Sorry, you didn't make
Yeah,
it very long.
Yeah, sure. I think we found an agreement. We somehow built the park, or built the parking lot and some of the amenities around it. But yeah, the dog park is actually the county facility, but we own the parking lot for some reason.
It may be tied to when we put the pathway in or something like
Yeah,
that.
I
'Cause that was
guess I
before
don't know the
dog
details,
park.
but we did find an agreement that is ours.
I was just curious because I know we've talked before, people have brought up lighting as a concern in that parking lot. And I always thought, oh, well, it's not ours. So we didn't have to worry about it. So indeed, if there's lighting issues, then I would assume that is still our problem if we're in charge of the parking lots.
No, that's good to know. Other questions from council members? Councilmember Bowden?
Were there things in that you wanted to put in 2026 that you ended up moving on to 27, either because of budget or more so, or timing or not having resources?
The 25 projects that went to 26?
I know the 20 for what you're proposing here for the 26. Some things that you would like to have gotten done in 26, but just because of budget, resources, or whatnot, you need to defer to 27.
I think our 26 is optimistic that we're gonna get all this delivered. I mean, it's our last year's budget was like 5.6 million, and this is 9.7, so it's significantly more. And so our goal is to get these all bid. I don't know if they'll get constructed, but the funding is there for the construction. I think it's more just the, getting plans ready, but also just some of the, if there's any right of way or permit and that kind of stuff that could hold us up.
Yeah, for example, some of the projects we had this year that we had two carryovers, both were related to right of way or some relatively minor thing that just held up the Wagner connection off between the Wagner and Western cul-de-sac. We've talked about that. We just need Ramsey County to do a really simple agreement that we've been working on for 18 months, and it's just an attorney thing that just needs to happen.
Yeah.
It's really, really simple, but until we can't bid the project till we have the right of way in hand. And then Lexington Pathway, same thing. We had to get some utilities relocated, so that's why that got delayed. So. It's optimistic, but we do hope to deliver it. Like I said, we do have the budget, so as long as everything can line up, we will hopefully bid and deliver all those projects next year.
So with the completion of that Lexington stretch, would that get pathway or sidewalk on both sides of Lexington pretty much from Larpenteur north or up to
So there's
36?
two significant gaps yet. One will be from B2 technically up to Lexington or into the park, so you could say Brooks.
Okay.
On the east side. So that's one gap. We do have it, it's in the pathway master plan to complete that gap, but that is going to be a challenging gap. And then on the far south end, south of Garden, between Garden and Larpenteur, there's a gap there in the commercial area. That'll also be a challenging one, although maybe the next time the county does Lexington, there's 2 lanes there going north for a little bit. If you did a reconstructed, it might make it easier. So, but there's not any current plans to fill those gaps, but those are the last 2 significant gaps.
Got it.
And I guess technically north of C2 there is 2, but that's a long, I don't know if that's a super needed connection, but
Sure. Oh, I was definitely thinking about south of 36 or south of B2 because that's certainly the highest volume section through Roseville
Yep.
in terms of traffic.
and it gets really up to the high school because we had completed a couple sections, there's been 2 previous phases that got there, and this is just the last 700-foot gap or so that's remaining.
Got it. Thank you. Other questions? Councilmember Groff?
This is kind of a minor detail, but in Owasso Heights, the street lights, so they were, when it was developed, they used a particular street lamp, isn't that correct? And so now the question is coming to the people in that area if they want to maintain those street lights or change to what we use as standard lights?
Yeah, so they have the option to go to the enhanced lighting is 2 things. One, it's higher in density of lighting. They have a much higher density of lighting currently than the rest of the city. So currently they have like 35 lights. If you did standard lighting, it'd be like 15.
Interesting.
Rough numbers like that. But then it's also the quality of the light. Typically, it's a wood pole with a cobra head. They have like an acorn-style light.
Exactly.
So there's 2 options that we showed that Excel would provide. One is basically really similar to what they have. It's a little different because it is cut-off lighting, so you drive out there now, the light's mainly going up. So it looks real similar to today. There's a pretty good cost associated with that. And then there's also still a somewhat decorative light, but it is a different style that they could go with as well. So we met in November with the neighborhood, and we just sent some more updated
good.
info out. So we'll certainly have more info, and that'll be something we'll be bringing back to council. The one thing with the policy, they do have to do a petition to keep it. So that, and then the other thing we did find, we thought we only had 3, there's 3 HOAs in that neighborhood, there's actually 4.
Oh.
So each neighborhood could offer their own kind of opinion. So basically, we look at it as there'll be potentially 4 distinct districts, potentially 4 different options. Based on the feedback, it's a little bit of mixed feedback, but
Yeah.
generally I would say the residents supported keeping the lights as is, or a similar style, but there was some support to reduce the lighting as well.
I've had some calls on it. I was surprised at that one. And would you change all of the lights in that HOA if they voted that way?
Yeah, we will go, if one HOA says go one way and the other says another, we can certainly do
Okay.
that. That's not a problem. We can certainly, and as we mentioned, we can if they want to increase the density too, we can even do that. There'll be a cost, or go in something in between. There's certainly options, but the lighting is due for replacement. I think it expired. We're either in year 26 or year 27 of that lighting.
Already
So the
that
lease has
long.
already expired, so and we are actually, it's funny, we never had an issue, and then the last 2 years, we have started seeing issues, so
Yeah.
Excel's infrastructure numbers their life cycle's pretty spot on.
Thanks.
I think Eric did get a website live with some more information about that. So a mailer was just sent to all the residents, pointing them to that as well.
And that's like a sub-page on the Public Works page that we could
Yep.
potentially find?
Yep.
Okay. And is one of the options, as I understood it, they potentially could maintain something decorative, but maybe less frequently along the
Exactly,
corridor?
yeah. If they wanted to do the decorative lighting, but just do the standard spacing, we could do that. So it's kind of open to what they want, because they can petition and we can, if they want to only spend $1,000. But the costs aren't huge, but no one else pays for lighting. No one pays an additional assessment for lighting. It's just part of the taxes that pay for lighting. So it is an increase for those neighborhoods if they want that.
If they want. And they, if the petitions aren't supported in certain parts or generally throughout, it would default to our standard.
Correct.
With the wood poles and the Cobra heads. Because we do need to maintain the lighting. Right, Councilmember Schroeder,
I'm kind of hiding over here.
waving the big
Yeah, I
hand.
know. I think I'm gonna get a flag next time. This is an aggressive amount from last year to this year. I'm curious, are you gonna try to do this mainly through contractors, or do you have enough staff to actually get this done? I'm curious from how can this be achieved, if all the things, align properly?
Most of the paving is all contractors. The overlay of, or mill and overlay of the parking lots and some of the trails will be in-house, but most of this is contract. For, I would say, a handful of these, some of the plans are already done. Like, we already have plans done on the Twin Lakes Trail and on a couple of these paths, and it's just been waiting to get the right-of-way or something else checked off so that we can actually bid it.
So you have enough people internally to manage and get it done?
Yep.
then? Okay, good.
Right, Councilmember Strong.
I just had a question about the Green to Go implementation. Do we have a date when we're going live, and kind of where are we at with contacting some of the smaller businesses?
So Green to Go, according to the ordinance and direction, went live January 1st.
So I was going to say, yes.
Okay.
So we've been reaching out to residents. We'll have a plan. One of the things the sustainability intern will do is Green to Go will be a big part of continuing to engage and check in and see
The
where we're at.
businesses.
With the
I
businesses.
don't remember how many they met with last year. It was pretty
It
significant.
was,
amount.
we had very good feedback and engagement with the majority of residents. We had a lot of phone calling our intern did last.
Businesses.
Yeah, I just
We
happened
like
to eat out a fair amount over the last few weeks, and I was a little disappointed at some of the containers that came home of businesses here in Roseville. So, just curious to know, is that something that our residents are encouraged to reach out, or how is that report that? Okay.
Yeah, certainly if we hear, we can know which business to reach out first. I doubt we're going to get to all the businesses next year, but we'll certainly try to prioritize and work through it. Like I said, we had a lot of communication with staff, and I know a lot of them were, yes, they'll transition. They just go, they want to get through like their current inventory that they have bought for containers. So hopefully the transition will work out well.
Okay, thank you.
I think also, fun fact, the recycling is now collecting hot cups, right? So like your Starbucks cup was not previously recyclable with the plastic lining, and is currently recyclable, at least with Waste Management. So they no longer have to change those out.
You know, and
changing.
that actually brings up a question that I had when I was looking at the materials from Waste Management. I wasn't sure about some of the things that have been previously not able to be collected, like black plastics or colored glass and things like that. Do we have an ability to update that information if there are changes to the residents so that the residents know about any of those changes?
We talk about it a lot with Noelle,
Yeah.
so even just staff education.
Right.
But yeah, we can talk to her about it.
Okay. And
I
certainly
think
the-
black plastic is still no.
Yep, yep.
Sorry.
But it'll help if we get the right green to go compliance there too, because that's a lot of those containers are the black plastic. All right. Other questions, feedback? I did want to check two things. One is the inflow and infiltration assistance. Is that primarily something where it pretty much gets used up right away? I mean, it's first come, first served, you said, and it seems to be fairly popular with residents. I wondered if it was a situation where if somebody, you know, if we see a plumbing permit come in for repair of a line, if that's an opportunity, if there's any funds available to try to make that connection. But or is it something where those are all gone right away at the beginning of the year or whatever? And
It's been, so this is the third year of the pilot, so it's changed every year. Like the first year, I don't think we got it live until July. Last year was like April. So I just got the agreement today. So that's like months in advance. So we typically have people on the list, like they've encumbered kind of dollars. And then once they do the work or reach a deadline and, you know, I'm like, you know, either use it or it's going to the next person, then there's, you know, they didn't use all 5,000 or they didn't use all 10,000. I do reserve a certain amount of money for the equity criteria, and so that's set aside, and so that's been slower to get used. I think there's enough people aware of it and on the wait list that it'll go a lot faster. But I did pull permits for work that had been done and found some houses that qualified for that equity and then reached out to them. So
okay.
2 people did get the equity grant this past year because of that, kind of after the fact. But I know that when people call in for either sewer issues, they talk to Ted and maintenance, or they're calling and getting permits, staff are telling them about it, because I do get a lot of calls and questions about it.
glad to hear that. And then the last thing was on the curbside organics. As I recall from the presentation, I think 2 years ago now, they said that that was a function of the transfer facility up in Blaine getting the robotic equipment to be able to handle it. And I'm presuming that's still a work in progress with between Ramsey, Washington counties and the transfer station people.
Yeah, it's my understanding. I haven't heard anything new. It's the joke is it's still 12 months. So
Yeah.
12 months just keeps moving. So I've not heard any more update specific that it's going to happen this summer. So.
All right,
But I
definitely
know it was in test mode in 2 cities in Ramsey County. So I don't recall which. Maybe it was Maplewood and.
I think those were cities that
But they were going directly-
Trash goes down to the center
Yeah.
down in Newport.
So-
Yeah, so we need us communities that go up to Blaine to get it done for that facility, so we can be part of that program. All right, good. Anything else from council members? And I'll just check if there is anyone from the public who has any comments about the proposed 2026 work plan for Public Works. Just if you do have comments, you can come on up to the table. We'll free up a microphone. All right. Doesn't seem to be the case. We do have the request before the council to approve the work plan. And once again, this doesn't approve the individual projects, and there's still steps that have to be taken with further approvals and bidding and things like that. But this at least approves the outline of the plan. Is there a motion from the council?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to approve the 2026 Public Works Work Plan. Discussion on that motion. As the maker of the motion, Councilmember Groff?
I think everyone here has said it's an ambitious plan. We're impressed, and fingers crossed we get most of it done. But
Right.
I know we can always move it over to the next year if we have things happen. So appreciate all your work.
Right. As the second, Councilmember Strawn?
Nothing further.
Right, other discussion on the motion? Right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that plan is approved. Thank you for that presentation this evening and all the work that everybody in Public Works, as you noted, does to make all those things happen. All right, that brings us then to another discussion about plans, I guess you might say. And this is to have our first opportunity to discuss what we might want to put into our 2026 legislative priorities. Each year, the city does develop a list of priorities and things that we want the legislature to do, either for ourselves specifically or for more broadly for communities like ourselves. And I'll turn it over to City Manager Trudgeon to run through last year's list and an update on what's happened or hasn't happened, and we can have a conversation about how we want to approach it for this session, which starts in February.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As mentioned, each year we do take a look at our priorities and identify items of interest for the city, very specifically, or cities is generally, and look to go to our legislative delegation to help advocate for passage or opposition on certain items here. So just as a note, this is the second year of the biennium, so it's the same legislature that was in office this last year, and also all the bills that were introduced are still available for consideration in the second year. The actual session will run from February 17th to May 28th, so a little bit of a later start than the first year of the biennium. So in your packet is information about our priorities from last year and kind of the status of them. The first, I guess, 4 of them are high priority items. These are items that we specifically, either as staff and city council or both of us, directly advocate for passage of legislation in regards to these. So those are the 4 items from last year. The first item is capital improvements through our bonding bill, something that we've had on our list for 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. We have one more phase of the funding for the Oval, which deals with the roofs and the HVAC units and restrooms there, that we have continually applied through the state, but there's also a legislative process. So we are asking for that. Again, there is no consideration of local projects really as part of the bonding bill. That small bonding bill was passed last year. Typically, bonding bills are done in the even years, although the last few years it's been all over the board. Some years they haven't passed them, some years they've passed them in odd years. So the good news is that we think that we will be in the running for some consideration. We did have the Senate Investment Committee, and I think all of you were there, that visited the Oval site, so it's very well known. We have strong support from our local legislative delegation. So we'll be on top of that to make sure at the appropriate time we go down and testify in support of that bill, that proposal. A couple of other things that we had as our primary items. One was to allow local governments to designate which licensed ambulance service provider may serve their community and determine the appropriate level of service. As you know, we've talked about the challenge right now with our service times and response times. It's something that has been very front and center in our conversations as we look at the fire department and how to adapt to that. As far as I could see, there was no bill that was officially introduced to make those specific changes. There are conversations happening in larger about the challenges of ambulance service, especially in rural areas, but I think that there is also a challenge in the metro area. So we'll continue to advocate and monitor that situation. I know our fire chief's very actively involved through his organization as well on that. The next item is to enact statewide licensing of massage therapists. This is something that we've had identified for a long, long time. This continues to be a challenge for us with background checks and making sure we have people that are properly trained and also professional on their services. And we really think that it is best to have a statewide system where there is one clearinghouse of information versus each local government doing their own background checks and trying to figure out if this person had any licensing issues in another city here. There was a bill that was introduced, as you can see, House File 362 and Senate File 1131. It just introduced, but no public hearings were held on that. I think this is, for this next session here, part of the session, we should really actively engage with a local delegation as well as the authors of the bill, and I'm sure there's other cities we can get on board with that. So I think that's a really important item to focus on. The last one we had as a high priority item was to allow for, to change state law to allow park dedication for collection of park dedication fees on new developments without the requirement of a subdivision. We have lots of land here in Roseville that's already been subdivided, but sometimes redeveloped from maybe a lower density to a higher density. That certainly impacts the amount of people that would be utilizing our parks, and right now we're prevented from having park dedication fees. It's really not about just collecting more money just to collect more money, but to make sure that we can properly fund our park system due to the increased need on there. As far as I could determine, there was no bill considered by the legislature. This is a coalition of other cities trying to do this, so we will continue to monitor that, but I think we'll be at the ready to support that if there is some type of bill that's introduced in a hearing. The other high priority item, and I don't have it particularly listed here, but I talk about in the case, is about all the housing bills and the preemption bills. As you know, we've kind of created that as a separate item, and we've had letters go to the legislature the last couple sessions about our concerns about the bill and the opportunities that we see with bills here. And so we may want to consider adding something to this high priority list specifically, although it seems like it's a moving target exactly what bill and what they're including on that. So I think last year we took the approach, let's react as the year goes on and write a letter that if we need to on the specifics of that. And I did include that in the packages for your information on there. Would also note that the mayor and I participated in a meeting with 9 other cities. As part of our regular check-in with other cities, we invited the area legislators from all 9 cities and had a really good, robust conversation about the issue and the concerns that city have. So I think hopefully they found that informative. Obviously, there's a push and pull with some of those bills, about affordable housing, but also local control. So I think we did a pretty good job of providing the context to them so they have a better understanding and certainly know where we stand. And I know last year, Councilmember Bauer and Councilmember Schroeder, we went down to the Capitol and talked to several of our area legislators too about that particular bill. So
Yeah, I push them every time I see them in person. I
Good.
talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So we don't really know where that's going to be going this year and what support it may or may not have, but something we'll continue to monitor. Just moving down to the list, and I won't go through every one of these here, but these are other items we've identified over the years as things that are important, but we would not take the lead on. We certainly have the advocacy groups of the League of Minnesota Cities and Metro Cities that do a lot of the work on some of these items. A couple items I want to note that the EDA powers for Ramsey County was approved. We've been asked for that support by the county, and that was approved, so we can most likely take that off. I think the sustainable alternative funding sources for cable commissions, I'm not sure if that's going to have legs or not. There are some bills introduced, but it seems like there seems to be some motion. I know in East Metro, there was a franchise agreement for internet, my understanding. So that's something that is brewing there. So I think that might rise to the surface a little bit more. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of industry lobbyists that are going to be opposing some of those things. So I think it should probably be a big fight if it does happen. I would also note that on the second bullet point from the bottom about the open meeting law and virtual meetings, for the most part, I think that has been met. There's really no limitation on when folks, city council and commissions can meet. There's not really any limitations. As you know, as part of our rules, we did limit that to 3 times a year, but that was a local choice, not the state law. So that certainly can be removed. The other thing that was approved, and it has happened in the last few years, and I'm not sure if we should take it off or not, about funding for Emerald Ash Borer. We've been very successful, as you know, in getting funds, so that's been really great for us. So certainly they fund it. But I noted last year was only about $400,000, which, boy, doesn't get you far at all in the state here. So that might be something you want to consider just keeping on there, just about continued funding for Emerald Ash Borer, not necessarily take that off. So the other ones, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to talk about the relevancy of keeping them on, or if there's anything to add. We did talk as a department head group, and there's really nothing new that we would add for this or remove for this last part of the legislative session. So with that, I will pause to see if there's any questions, and not necessarily looking for approval tonight. If we want to bring some things back, we certainly can. If you think everything looks great, we can certainly consider approving it. As I said, we have some time before the session opens, so we have several opportunities to tweak this as we need. So,
Councilmember Schroeder.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm not sure where this would fit in on this, but something which was in and then they took it out, was the cannabis sharing of the tax for the cities, where now they took it out, so cities are getting zero amount of the tax revenue to do some of the work we have to do. So I think that's something we'd want to support, changing back to where they were before. But like I said, I'm not sure where that would fit on here, if at all.
Well, it certainly was removed, so I think it certainly could be on a list. It just maybe depends on what the.
Yeah,
priority
maybe
is.
other priorities or something. And that's, I'm just trying to think, because I think the league is supportive of that, but I
Yep.
was just thinking because, again, they had it and then they took it out,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think there's some push to try to get it back in again. And it'd be good, since we do have to do some of the work, that we should get reimbursed for some of that.
Yep.
All right, other thoughts, questions?
Oh, I'd say keep the emerald ash borer on there because that's not going to go away.
Any objections? Hearing none.
And the top four also that we need, I think those are all important still in my mind.
I think it'd be interesting if we could hear from perhaps the attorney for the Communications Commission sometime soon, if possible, about, what was the framework, or maybe our own attorney knows too, that's possible. Don't want to discount that expertise. But what was the framework under which Woodbury did their internet or broadband franchise? Because my understanding is that that was not allowed, and then suddenly they did it, and so it'd be very interesting to understand how that relates to whether we need to keep this legislative priority from my point of view, because if there's already a system in place, then maybe we don't need that as a priority, and we don't have to invite all the wrath of all the providers or whatever. I don't know. But I don't understand enough about it now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Councilmember Strawn, you're on the commission, if you have a good understanding of it either, but.
The last we spoke of it, it was the 12, I think, partner cities that were involved in that area, and they were able to successfully pass it. And I know there was some mutterings from our city attorney over there, so maybe she has some good resources. Obviously, our attorney for the Cable Commission is very vocal and very outspoken and has a lot of pull. And so, I think it was one of the reasons I started to be more in support of franchise fees once we saw how that impacted us, and maybe that could be a way that we could keep our recording and other things viable through that Cable Commission without taking on too much of the city burden as well. But I think you had something else to add.
I can't speak terribly intelligently on this topic, but I will say that we have an attorney in our office who focuses on franchises and things like this. And his belief is that some additional legislation would be quite helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I'd really like to understand what that might look like, because certainly this was specific to, I guess it was general, sustainable alternative funding sources. But it was, as I recall, the legislation that I testified about was local franchising of broadband, and boy, that didn't go anywhere. So, there was a hearing, and then it kind of died in the legislature more broadly. But I would want to make sure that we're pushing for something that does what it needs to do and fits the current situation. That's my only point on that. I don't have a problem with having it as one of our other priorities, but just want to make sure it's tailored to the situation. And I would love to have a better understanding of what was the statutory framework under which that group did their franchise, because my impression was you couldn't do that. And so I don't know, maybe they've got a unique situation that doesn't apply to us or whatever it is, but, whatever that is, it'd be interesting to know more about it. And I don't know if it's a presentation at a council meeting per se, but maybe even just a memo from Mr. Bradley, or in conjunction with our attorney, or two memos or whatever, that can help us understand that better before we go forward with that particular bullet point.
Certainly. And so just, I think it was early December, late November, the city administrators and managers got together with 9 North, as we try to do several times a year, and we received a pretty healthy update on that, and we had a lot of the same questions you did.
Okay.
So I did get some material, but I think it might be worthwhile to bring Mr. Bradley here to talk about it, because they are looking for other cities to be supportive,
right.
and before we can support anything, we need to understand
For sure.
play here.
Okay.
So let me reach out to him. I'm sure he'd be happy to come to a meeting and talk.
I think they were planning to reach out to city managers,
Yep.
so I think it would be
It's all
next-
coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
good.
with, as well as Ms. Strawn said. So
Yep.
from
Yep.
Night North.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
So I what I can do is I'll see if I get him to be here at the January 26th meeting.
Okay.
And, so we can still have time to wordsmith what we need to for the language here.
Thanks.
And he could speak to the Woodbury situation, because
Yep.
I'm not
Yeah, he was-
familiar
he
with
was
that.
directly
I'd like to
involved
know
in
more.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually put in place a broadband franchise.
Yeah,
I was
that's what I'm
"This is not-
understanding,
I understood
which
you
is
couldn't
fine."
do that. So,
Yeah.
Nobody seems to know why or how.
Interesting.
It just happened, but
Good
there's,
news.
there's probably more to it than that. Other thoughts, questions about either keeping existing things, taking things off, or changing anything? I think it does make sense to perhaps add, and I don't know for sure if it's high priority, or, well, I think it might make sense is to sort of summarize our point of view on some of these legislative approaches to housing and affordable housing, supporting affordable housing and flexibility for enactment of policies at the local level,
Right.
sort of preference for guidelines and a menu of options rather than preemption language at the state level about zoning. Things like that. So I don't know if there's maybe something we can work up that we can take a look at a subsequent meeting about that. But I think in addition to a letter that might be tailored to specific legislation, I think it does make sense to have a bullet point, just talking about the general situation and sort of where we stand on that, unless there's any objection.
No, because I think affordable housing obviously is important, but we in Roseville have done a lot of work on affordable housing, but some others have not, and so that's part of the problem of what we have going on.
Right.
That's trying to be addressed, but kind of in a heavy-handed way, I think.
Right.
So if there are other ways of doing that, I'd be interested in knowing how that could be done.
Yeah, so I'll start working, draft some language, bring back, and we can wordsmith that.
Anything else that council members want to make sure is either highlighted or moved to a higher priority or a lower priority or anything like that?
I just had a question for Councilmember Schroeder. I know that when I was on League of Minnesota Cities, we had kind of some of the bigger issues kind of percolated up. Is there anything that has been addressed there that you feel has not been addressed in what we're?
Well, again, I think, the only thing that, and that's what I was looking through, that was just that cannabis, the sharing of the tax, which I think is, I'm not sure, there's different reasons why they decided not to share with the cities anymore, but there's actually quite a very healthy list that the league has going on too, that they're working on, so, yeah, so I think that was the only thing that wasn't on the list that I could think of.
The only thing that comes to mind is just regionally, this, the car safety has been an issue. And, when a few years ago when Senator Marty was working on the catalytic converter piece, that kind of gelled around one idea and has largely been successful, although that has morphed into some new things lately. But just vehicle safety, and if there's I'm not a vehicle safety specialist, but the amount of carjackings and vehicle thefts, maybe not as much in our direct neighborhoods, but enough that it does impact quality of life for our residents. And so trying to understand what someone who's an expert in that area would recommend at the state level, I think would be interesting or helpful to know, because I think it is a quality of life issue, especially for anyone who maybe drives a little bit older Kia or Hyundai or doesn't have a garage or, things like that. Those are constant barriers to frontline workers who maybe that's the car they have. And so it is a quality of life issue for someone. And as much as housing or food, if you don't have a car, you can't get to work and you can't have all the other things you need. So it's a ripple effect. And so I haven't seen anything rise up to the level, but I'd be curious to know if there's some legislation that is of interest or seen as something that could be beneficial in that area. I think it would be worth looking at to see if other cities, probably one of the larger cities, except for we have to remember we had joined both St. Paul and Minneapolis, so it really does impact, and especially in our partnership with the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance and things like that, where those things are even more common, but I don't think we should ever think that we're immune just because we're in Roseville.
When I attended the League of Minnesota Cities, when was on with the Service Delivery Committee, where we were voting on these things, and later on we were discussing all the items. I don't recall that coming up at all with the League of Minnesota Cities or from Minneapolis or St. Paul, which were also represented there. But I did not hear that from any city, nor was it presented at the League of Minnesota Cities. So I'm not so sure if it's, your concern, I guess, hasn't bubbled up to the point of being something that the league has addressed or feels that it needs to be. Like I said, both large cities and Minnesota didn't bring it up either.
Well, I think there's two things too. I mean, I know the city manager wanted to be recognized on this as well. So, of course, it is against the law to carjack or to steal cars.
Yes.
So we shouldn't have to have new legislation in that regard. And I will say that just on the sort of incidental information I get through being on the Youth Violent Crime Prevention Group in Ramsey County that County Attorney Choi has, there's a lot of other issues that are tangential or tie into that. And certainly car theft and carjacking issues. I know that the numbers in Ramsey County, anyway, have gone down quite a bit since there's been some enhanced enforcement efforts
Right.
and targeted enforcement efforts in Ramsey County that I think has made some difference for our community, St. Paul, and neighboring communities. And in that group, there's a lot of discussion about the contrast with Hennepin County and Minneapolis, and not necessarily maybe lack of enforcement, but just different focuses and different outcomes. And I think that there definitely have been higher numbers in Minneapolis specifically that have still kind of maintained since the peak around the pandemic time. So I just wanted to mention that it's an enforcement thing as much as it is legislation probably. And then City Manager Trudgeon, you had additional thoughts?
Yeah, so in the back of my head, I thought one of the groups had talked about it, and so it's not League of Minnesota Cities that I can find, but Metro Cities actually does have a policy about street racing and carjacking. And among other things, their policies support state funding to help state and local law enforcement agencies to prevent and respond to street racing and carjacking. This could include funding for state patrol air support, overtime details, targeted law enforcement saturations. It also changes laws supporting to prohibit street racing, also supports consumer protection efforts that require motor vehicle manufacturers to offer anti-theft protection devices on certain vehicles that have been shown to be easily susceptible to theft. So they have a very broad policy, but general policy on that item. So that could be good enough for us, that knowing that they have that as part of their policies, and certainly support anything versus an individual policy that we might have for us. But so that's what I'm reading from their material.
And that's certainly something we could decide to add as one of our other items if we feel it rises to that level. So that's good to know. Thank you. Anything else on the legislative priorities for this session?
Just a clarification, Councilmember Shorter mentioned about the cannabis tax. Is
Oh.
that something we should add to this item?
Is that something we want to do as either a high or other priority?
I wouldn't do it as a high.
Okay,
I'd be in favor of adding it as an other priority.
maybe a choice of words, yeah.
I think our high is still the John Rose.
Yeah, I agree. I think our highest should be on the oval.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. And I would hope every time any of us run into anybody representing us at the state level, we should mention that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important this year too, when it's brought forth the hearing at the Capitol, that we try to attend that ourselves as well.
Yes.
And show not just that it's staff, but actual council members
Right.
and electeds are attending
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Just do whatever we can to kind of move this forward. I know other cities do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably a
sure.
good idea for us to do it as well.
Yeah.
I think
And depending on the year and what's been going on, definitely there has been council member involvement in the past too. So we can maintain or sustain or add to that, yep.
I think it's good to mention that even if they aren't our local legislators, if you do run into them other places, and mention how it's a regional, because we need the votes from other
Yep,
areas.
absolutely. And that's what I do. Whenever I run into all these other events that we represent, if I see them, I bring it up.
Good.
So,
You want
absolutely.
your 1-2 punch to be the oval funding and the statewide licensing of
Yes.
massage therapists and establishments.
Yeah, that
because
would
I
be
think,
good, too.
Especially the therapists, because I think that is something we need to focus more on this time around. And there is legislation, I believe, that's one of the ones on the list that has legislation. So, that's easy to point to. To that end, I was going to suggest that we look at whether that's a topic we want to bring up as one of the topics for our 9-city meeting coming up in January here, just to get all our neighboring cities talking about it, mayors and city administrators, managers thinking about it. And then also, I don't know if it makes sense as the Ramsey County League of Local Governments looks at programming, if that's something to think about for programming for this year.
I'll mention that.
Or at least make it a part of the, if they do the typical sort of legislative priorities meeting that the League of Local Governments does, that maybe that could be a
Well,
focus of
actually,
that.
we're putting together, we're doing the, where they're going to come down and have dinner with us to have a conversation around all our priorities. So I'll make sure that,
Okay.
one, I'll get the dates when that's happening so people can come if they'd like, absolutely.
Yep.
And then we can make sure that gets mentioned. But then I'll also bring it up at the executive meeting.
Good, good. Councilmember Strawn.
I just like to say, I think that's really when the catalytic converter issue got legs, was when people outside of a very small population of people and a very specific neighborhood started to see that it could impact you wherever. And once it started impacting some of the cities outside of the metro, that's when it started to have the ability to actually make some progress. So I think that's a proof with many others, but that really, the more you tell people, especially outside of our neighborhood, how it impacts you, because they, if it's not you, you don't often know how it impacts others.
Well, I think that the nexus with the massage therapy licensing is the tie-in with, unfortunately, with the potential for trafficking and sexual predation and things like that. So it's important to emphasize that part. It's really about the safety of the customers of those establishments and the community.
Absolutely.
And that's not limited to one
No,
area.
for sure.
of the state, for sure.
That's everywhere, yep, good. The only other thing I just wanted to touch in with the council on is we've got one on here for sprinkling of R2 multifamily occupancy groups. This has been on for a while, but I don't honestly know. There hasn't, as far as I know, been bills in the last several sessions about it, and I just don't know if it's something we want to continue mentioning on our list or not, or where the council is on that, or if we need to think about it some more and figure that out the next time we look at this. But I just wanted to raise that question, because it's one that I'm not sure about myself.
If I recall, Mayor, I think that was brought forward by the fire department several years ago as far as something that,
Well, I thought it was council member initiated, but
what was it? Okay.
it may have been, but it's long enough ago that
Yeah.
maybe that's a reason enough to kind of
We
research
have to go
it a
back to
little
the
bit.
archives and
Yeah.
figure out. Maybe it was, yeah.
And certainly there's a fairly, probably a pretty healthy lobby against it amongst
Yes.
all of the
Yeah.
managers of R2 multifamily residential and builders of those, so.
Well, it's a
although
very
these
expensive
days-
thing to retrofit.
Well, I was just gonna say, it's a retrofit thing too, because these days they would have to be built with a sprinkler system, so it's not a question of new construction, but certainly the retrofit situation. So like I said, I just wanted to raise that as something to maybe noodle on some more before this comes back before us.
Yep. I can do some research on that.
Anything else from the council on priorities for the legislative session for this year? All right. Thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. We'll look forward to these items coming back for some refinement with the council. That then brings us to, I should do a quick check with the members of the public in case there was somebody here who wanted to speak to our legislative priorities this evening. I don't want to bypass that opportunity for folks to weigh in. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to provide insight into what we've been talking about as to our legislative priorities? All right, doesn't appear to be the case. Then we will move to our commission reappointments and vacancies for 2026. And we have our Assistant City Manager, Rebecca Olson, with us this evening to bring this before the council for our consideration. Welcome, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you know, every year we have an opportunity to look at reappointments to the various commissions and declare any vacancies for those members who are either not seeking reappointment or are terming off. So tonight before you, you have a couple things that you're being asked to do. One is to review the timeline that is listed in your handout. I'll briefly go over that timeline. So tonight, you're going to be considering declaring vacancies. Once those vacancies are declared, tomorrow staff will then put information on the website and start advertising so that we can recruit for those various vacancies across the various commissions. February 6th, the application period will close and staff will gather all the important information together, compile it into a packet for you, and then interviews are scheduled for February 17th with a tentative second night of the 19th, depending on how many applicants we have. Following that, council will then look to appoint applicants at the March 2nd meeting. And after that, we have our online orientation and then an in-person orientation at the night of the ethics training, which is in April. So tonight, you have the opportunity to review the various vacancies on the second and third page, list them by commission. And you can, if you choose, decide to reappoint any of those commissioners who are seeking reappointment tonight, or as you've done in the past, you typically have waited until all of the applicants and appoint everybody at that time. It is up to you. You have the choice of how you'd like to do that, but staff is looking for direction on what to do with those commissioners who are seeking reappointment. The second item you're being asked to consider is declare the vacancies, which is just an official motion to open up the opportunity for us to advertise. So on page 3 of the staff report, there are a table at the end that lists the number of vacancies per commission. There's 13 total vacancies. There are 6 commissioners who are seeking reappointment, which would leave, if all of those commissioners are reappointed, depending on council's decision, 7 additional vacancies. It is up to you how you'd like to do that. If you'd like to interview those commissioners who are seeking reappointment, if you'd like to consider them at a later date. So with that, I'll find out if there's any questions related to this process and look for some direction from you.
All right, and just a clarification too on the vacancy, the third vacancy on the Finance Commission, that was.
Yes.
It was a partial term that actually ends in March, and so it would be an appointment for a full 3-year term.
That is correct.
When we make an appointment at our March timeframe.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the council? Doesn't appear to be any questions. I do want to note too, so past practice has moved around a little bit as to, there were a number of years where we did just reappoint all the eligible people at the first opportunity. There were a couple of times when we did some interviews, and then there was maybe in conjunction with the interviews and/or another time where we made appointments ultimately when we were doing all the rest of the appointments. So I think the council has a lot of precedents to attempt to follow, or we can always, blaze new trails. That's a possibility as well. So, but certainly it's up to us to determine that. And, one path is once again a motion to reappoint those eligible and reapplying this evening or at another time or something else. So I will.
Question. Was there any input from the chairs of the commissions? I know you've got the attendance here, but was there any?
Councilmember Groff, they did not provide input on any of the reappointments.
Okay.
They will typically sit in on the interviews and provide
Right.
some feedback at that point.
Well, it looks to me like most of the people that are asking for reappointment have been attending, and as far as I admit I can't watch every one of these meetings, but I try to catch some of them. They've all been participating and doing the work, so I don't see any reason not to reappoint them tonight. I mean, I think it's kind of good to get that so that it can get on their calendar, especially since they've been already doing the work.
And I will add to that a lot of these are initial partial term,
Right.
terms, so they were just recently
Exactly.
interviewed. I can recall the interviews of many of these people. as
Yeah.
well.
And we should note that we have the reappointment applications of all of the folks that have applied and are eligible and want to be reappointed, and we had that as part of our consideration this evening as well. And I did note that it appeared that people pretty thoughtfully responded to that, and I thought that was important as something to think about in terms of the reappointment process. Councilmember Schroeder.
Yeah, I agree, because unless people feel the need to re-interview these people, which I don't get the impression, I don't know why we just wouldn't appoint them. So I would move to reappoint the ones that have applied again and would like to serve another term.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder and second by Councilmember Strawn to reappoint those who are eligible and applying for reappointment this evening. Discussion on the motion as the maker, Councilmember Schroeder. As the seconder, Councilmember Strawn.
I concur with Councilmember Schroeder. I think when we sought to re-interview people, there was a bit of a disconnect. We'd seen some attendance issues, and we hadn't met a lot of the people because of COVID and interviewing people online. And I feel like, as Councilmember Bowers mentioned, a lot of these are initial partial terms. So I would be comfortable, especially in some of these where there's a fairly large number of people that do need to be added. And I think it would be really unfortunate for a committee like the Equity and Inclusion Commission to not reappoint two of the small group of people when they just got started and, they're working hard to get some change made. So I think I'm strongly supportive of those who are eligible being reappointed, especially when I look at their attendance record. It shows a big commitment to what they're doing.
Other discussion on the motion? Right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to appoint, or reappoint, I should say, those who are eligible and applying for reappointment as outlined in the materials, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those reappointments are made. Then, the remaining motion would then be to declare vacancies in all the other openings as outlined.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Groff, to declare the vacancies. As outlined, discussion on that motion as the maker, Councilmember Schroeder.
It's very straightforward.
As the seconder, Councilmember Groff.
Nothing.
No discussion. All right, any other discussion on that motion to declare those vacancies? Fairly administrative. All right, with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously as well. Any other actions we need to take in this regard this evening, other than saying go with the process?
No, Mayor, thank you very much.
All right, go. Thank you, Ms. Olson. And we look forward to a bunch of good candidates for all of our advisory commissions. I think we've got, almost every commission has a vacancy, and so there's a lot of opportunities for people to participate in ways that match their interests or the way they'd like to participate with the city. That then brings us to any changes we might wish to consider to the City Council and Advisory Commission rules of procedure, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Trudgeon to bring this item before us as we do each year.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, each year we do a check-in at the first meeting of the year about any potential changes to the City Council and Advisory Commission rules of procedure. I would note that last year we were quite busy. We amended it 3 times. In January 6, 2025, we did amend the rules, Rule 8, to allow for the appointment of a presiding officer at a meeting when the mayor and acting mayor are unavailable to chair the meeting.
Or the chair or vice chair.
Chair or vice chair, yeah. Yes, yeah.
For commissions.
It's for commissions, yeah. On the 27th of January, we did amend this Rule 3, which is about public comment, and basically said that the public speaking time limits above, which is the 3 minutes, do not apply to the prearranged presenters or subjects or applicants for council action or appellants or petitioners to the council. Such speakers are encouraged to limit their remarks to 10 minutes or less. Maybe that was the reference earlier.
Might have been what
tonight.
I came from, right.
That was a change. And the last one we did was fairly recently in October, where we amended Rule 7, remote participation, about allowing council members and commission members to participate remotely, provided all notice and other requirements of the open meeting law are met up to 3 times a year. So tonight is an opportunity to bring forward any other ideas and changes that you have. To date, I have not personally heard of any changes that council member wants to make, but this is your opportunity to bring that up tonight.
All right. Thoughts about any changes to our rules of procedure for the council and or commissions?
I think we've done plenty of changes already.
All right. Yeah, we'd like to try to keep them in effect for a while without
Yes.
changes. People can get used to them that way. All right, doesn't appear to be the case, and so there's no action required because the rules are in effect until they're changed. All right, moving right along then, that brings us to considering the designation of city council liaisons to various groups and committees. Once again, I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Trudgeon to kick off the discussion anyway, and then probably the council can take it from there.
Yes, real briefly, each year you do designate council liaisons to the organizations that are listed in the case here, and they're up on the screen here. I would mention a couple of them. I think Northeast Youth and Family Services and the Visit Roseville have terms that don't necessarily coincide with the calendar year, and also their terms, for several years. But we are looking for council appointments to the Northeast Youth and Family Services Board, the North Suburban Communications Commission, and the Suburban Access Corporation Board, Ramsey County League of Local Governments, Roseville Fire Relief Association, Visit Roseville, and the Rice Lavender Alliance Board member. There's also 2 standing subcommittees the council has. One is City Manager Performance Review, and then also the council representative for legislative work. So each year, the council chooses the council member that's going to serve in those roles, and that is what we're here tonight to discuss. We do have a resolution which will fill in the names, but I'll turn it over to the council for the discussion and who they would like where.
All right, and just to be clear on the NYFS board, as we understand it, that term actually is through 2020, through June of 2027. So unless Councilmember Graff is planning to leave early in his term, council would not necessarily need to take any action on that particular position this evening. But I think whether we do it this evening or later this year, I think you are terming off of the Visit
Jim.
Roseville board. So probably either this evening or in July, we'd want to consider that appointment since the term starts in August.
Yeah, it's actually a year later though, isn't it?
In NYFS is 2027.
Yeah, so it's
Right,
not.
Visit Roseville is 2026.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying, we don't have to take any action related to NYFS.
Right.
But Visit Roseville,
We will have
before
to do
the
something.
August term start, we would want to do something. But we don't necessarily have to do that one this evening either.
No, but I mean, if other members are interested in that, they should speak up.
Sure.
Because we can certainly address it now or later. I mean, I have no issue. I can do the meetings. I do know
Between now and
the
August.
process. Yeah, that's fine with me. If no one else wants to take that on.
Should I just say, well, let's nominate Councilmember Groff to stay on NYFS?
Well,
Or is
no,
that
we don't
just a
think we have to
given?
take any action
Okay.
because it's a term, so.
It's a term. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
just leave
yeah.
it the way as is.
Yeah.
I would like to stay on the North Suburban Communications Commission, as I just had less than a year on there, and just, I've been working with them to update their employee handbook and some employee policies, and so being able to assist with some of the HR components has been helpful to them and to me as well, so I would like to stick around there for a bit if possible.
Great.
What about Ramsey County League of Local Governments, Councilmember Schroeder?
Well,
you-
they just elected me treasurer for 2026, so unless somebody
So
wants
it's
to.
good time to leave them in the lurch.
So I was going to say, unless somebody wants to become a treasurer, I'd be willing to stay another year.
Okay. Anybody want to usurp that role?
Contested. No, I think that.
All right, there you go.
Right? So.
I
top
would like
three?
to, yeah, like, we can finish that area. I would just say, I'd like to see about surrendering the liaison role with the council. Struggled with my work hours, finding times to commit and to connect.
Could you tell me how that works? I mean, how do you?
It hasn't, real great.
So I mean, okay, if it did work, how does it work?
When I first began 5 years ago, it was much easier. I was able to connect with our local electeds.
So you just call them and
Call
try to
them,
set
connect
up a
with them,
okay.
meet with them, kind of talk
Okay.
about different things. I'd have to say, in the last, for sure, year, if not 2 years, it's been mostly frustrating, just not being able to get to the human involved. At one point, we did go down and meet with some of our electeds, and that was beneficial, but I just haven't gotten any FaceTime this last year, and I'm not able to go during the day, so I don't know when else it would be a time to meet. So I think it might be good if someone else wanted to take a stab at trying to connect and commit to who can maybe meet during the day and get down to the offices when they might be present or when they're going to be on the floor or something.
I have the flexibility to do that.
All right. Penciling in. Do we want to take any decision now as to the Visit Roseville board position or just defer that to middle of the year?
If we can defer it, and my availability might change by then, I'd be interested in participating if I was available to do so.
It's a noon meeting.
It is a lunchtime meeting,
If I was,
right?
yeah.
So.
If you're comfortable running your term till August, I mean.
I can, but I think the only thing I want to say is you need to be thinking about who's going to do it in
Right,
August.
right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
keep,
And I can't commit to it right now,
Yeah,
so if
so do
someone else
I.
could.
keep it in your
but I
minds
can't.
for the next few months. I don't want to wait until June 30th, and then have us say, by the way, remember back in January when we talked about it?
No, I was going to say that would certainly be something we would want the staff to be on top of in terms of our future agendas and making sure that we don't miss that one. But no doubt, Councilmember Groff will be on it to a certain degree too, because people want to make
clock is
sure
ticking.
That, right, exactly. People want to make sure there's
And we do
a
need
replacement, right?
representation there.
Yep. All right. I don't know that there's necessarily any changes to these ex officio members of the Fair Relief Association. Unless, I mean, technically it only has to be a city council representative, so it doesn't have to be the mayor. It has been traditionally that way, but I would certainly, if somebody's real eager to jump on that bi-monthly or semi-monthly or whatever every other month is, that is a 5 p.m. meeting on Tuesdays, second Tuesday of the month. So otherwise, if nobody else wants to take over that responsibility, I'm happy to continue in that role.
Good with that?
All right, nobody's leaping to take that away from me. All right, I'm perfectly willing to defer on the Rice and Larpenteur Alliance Board. I don't have a leadership role in terms of like, chair, vice chair, or anything like that on the board. So if that's something of interest to members of the council, that is a lunchtime meeting pretty much on a monthly basis. I think every other month it's remote and then otherwise in person. So, and that's on a Thursday, middle of the month time frame. Once again, I can continue if nobody else is interested in taking that on at this point.
I'm happy to have you continue on that.
Doesn't seem to be any objection. And then we've got our standing committee on the city manager performance review, which Councilmember Schroeder and Bauer were on this past time around.
I'd be happy to continue on that with Councilmember Schroeder.
Yeah, no, I'd continue that one more year for sure.
Right? Might be nice to have some continuity there, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, so really, well, we just have one change on the legislative council representative. And then for our resolution, we wouldn't have anything for NYFS on the resolution or nor for Visit Roseville, and then we'd have to come back for the Visit Roseville middle of the year.
And if anyone wants to talk to me about that, I feel free to.
So when is Visit Roseville? What day?
It's at noon on the,
Well, it's not every month. It's
No.
6 meetings. It's a Wednesday.
Is it a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday,
you know,
12 to 1:30.
I think it's the third Wednesday, but I
Yes,
could be wrong.
Okay.
Always in person?
Yes. And they do move the one in, we don't have one in, yeah, we do have one in December,
Due in December.
but it's, yeah,
Over the summertime, we don't have.
no.
It's a little bit irregular, so I can't say.
Yeah, I can get you if you're interested.
It might be interesting just to get a little more detail behind it. Yeah.
All right. So we have the resolution then, if I'm not mistaken, excluding anything right now with NYFS and excluding anything right now with Visit Roseville. Otherwise, NSCC stays the same. I'm happy to continue as an alternate there. RCLLG stays the same. Fire Relief stays the same. Rice and Larpenteur Alliance Board stays the same. Standing Committee for City Manager Performance Review stays the same. And Councilmember Bauer, unless there's any objection, would take over that role with the legislature, legislative work. All right. So that would be the resolution if one were to make a motion about that.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Bauer. Discussion on the motion as the maker, Councilmember Groff?
No, I think it's good to have continuity, but then it's good to mix it up eventually.
Sure. They're both good.
Yes.
Right. Councilmember Bauer as the seconder.
Nothing to add.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution making those liaison appointments as outlined for 2026 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. And just for the public, I didn't provide an opportunity for public comment, but it's kind of an internal item, so I was hopefully right in that presumption that nobody might have a lot to say on that. But if somebody did, we would certainly open up the opportunity. That then brings us to another very administrative inside baseball, if it were, or as it were, thing, which is the consideration of the appointment of the acting mayor for 2026. By state law, each year, cities must, at the beginning of the year, designate that year's acting mayor, who serves in the vacancy or in the absence of the mayor in various ceremonial roles, but also probably more importantly, in the vacancy of the office of mayor and/or filling in as the chair of the council meetings if the mayor is not able to do that role. Traditionally, that has been somebody, I think, who has a fair amount of experience on the council and probably more importantly, has the ability to go to daytime ribbon cuttings and grand openings and things like that, or groundbreakings, not to mention, obviously, chairing council meetings and things like that. So I'd be open to a motion to make an
I'd
appointment.
make a motion to have Councilmember Schroeder as the acting mayor for 2026.
I'd like to counter. In the past, I've been told that people who are up for reelection in that particular year were not people that had been considered. And that was something that was a big deal was made of last time, that in an election year, those people were not shouldn't be the acting mayor. And that, so just would like to put that out there if that's really a point of contention or if that was just a prior city council member's personal opinion. But that was brought forward as an issue.
It certainly has been discussed before as part of this discussion. I don't know that there's any written policy. Certainly, there may have been an informal policy that I'm not sure how formal or informal it was necessarily. Councilmember Bauer, you.
Oh, I was just gonna-
We don't have a second for the motion, by the way, too.
I was just going to add that I would need some more clarification about what the conflict or the concern would be there.
I think that was Councilmember Etten who brought that up.
Yeah, because he wasn't going to run again, so I think he was just stepping back at that time.
I think he said that he and one of the former council members had there'd been some agreement, but
I believe Councilmember Wilmus also brought it forward in the past.
but I don't know that. Maybe the mayor would remember better than me.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that as to what I remember about it, but, you know, and I can understand sort of a point of view of, especially if somebody was appointed acting mayor and ran for mayor, but I don't know that anybody knows anything about any of that at this point, so it's a little hard to know for sure.
That probably
How it
was the thinking,
weighs
wasn't
into
it?
it?
Yeah, that probably
I
was
don't
the
know.
thinking.
I don't know. But it certainly is a council appointment, and we do need to appoint somebody, so, and it's really kind of a function of 4 members figuring it out, because I'll vote probably for whatever motion is out there necessarily. Do we have a second for Councilmember Bauer's motion? Maybe it's probably the first order of business.
Well, I'll second it.
All right. Maybe for purposes of discussion.
Purpose, yep.
Okay,
let's
all right.
Keep it going.
All right. So we have the motion before us by Councilmember Bauer, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder, to appoint Councilmember Schroeder as the acting mayor for 2026. Discussion on the motion. As the maker of the motion, Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, I think, following up what we were talking about with the appointments to different groups, it's nice to have consistency, and it's also nice to change things up too. I think having, it's nice that we've had Councilmember Groff and all of his years of experience on the council, and I think adding more people to have some, opportunities as well. I like the continuity here because we have your experience as the acting mayor multiple times, which is fantastic. And then having someone else, I just like the idea that we're kind of in depth. We have multiple people able to do this, and adding more to that. I like that idea as far as continuity goes.
As the seconder, Councilmember Schroeder.
Well, and if we went with that, neither Councilmember Groff or I could be in the running then. And then Julie said.
Oh, as far as the election year?
And
factor?
also then Julie said she's not available during the day, so you would eliminate 3 people just like that. So, I mean, and it isn't an actual, it's not in our rules, so it's more of a, yeah, so I don't know. So I guess I'm not sure that would be, that would leave Commissioner or Councilmember Bauer would be the only one.
I was a commissioner not so long ago.
The default acting mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I was just starting his second year. I think there are people who are more qualified.
Other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Strong.
I would be interested in putting forward myself. I know Mayor Rowe has been available largely during the day, and that may not always be the case. And my current availability may not always be the case as soon. So I just think, given that I am now at 5 years, I think I would put forward myself as a contest, as a person in that, and feel like that would be something that I think mostly it's been someone who's been able to lead the meetings. Largely has been the time that those few times that Mayor Rowe is unavailable. We've been pretty fortunate that he is present pretty much.
Would you say that is a motion on your part?
Sure, I'll motion myself.
So that would be a,
Counter motion.
all right,
Well, I would second that for purposes of discussion
all
here.
right. So Councilmember Strawn moves to essentially amend the motion to appoint Councilmember Strawn as the acting mayor, seconded by Councilmember Groff for discussion purposes. Discussion on that motion to amend. Councilmember Strawn, as the maker of the motion, any additional comments to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Councilmember Groff as the seconder.
Well, I guess the argument there would be that, yeah, Councilmember Strawn does have more experience. She's been on the council longer and has not been the acting mayor. There are things during the day that are good to be at, like the ribbon cuttings and things like that, but, sometimes schedules can be changed.
All right. Other discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I do think availability is important there, which is one of the reasons for my original motion. I think that can't be understated. Things happen in the city. You need to be available as the mayor.
Other discussion on the motion?
Well, I don't think things happen that the mayor has to address during the day. I mean, it's ribbon cuttings mostly, but,
Mostly, right, but there are.
I mean, the mayor could speak to that better than I could.
Well, I
Is there
think-
an emergency
So
where you
there's,
have to?
well, I was going to say, there's two aspects of the acting mayor. One is the sort of filling in for the mayor when the mayor's not able to, but is continuing in office.
Right.
Certainly, one of the aspects of the acting mayor is the role as the mayor, should the mayor not be able to continue in office for whatever reason. And so that's a consideration as well. And I think that's a part of it, and I don't know how to answer that, as to who to select necessarily, because I am going to stay above the fray in that regard.
And healthy.
And knock on countertop here that I continue in that role.
I don't know if we have any wood to choose from.
So we do have the motion to amend and appoint Councilmember Strawn before the council. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Wait, which one are we voting on?
This is the amendment motion,
amendment.
Councilmember Strawn. We have to do that first. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
That motion fails. Councilmembers Schroeder, Bauer, and Mayor Rowe in opposition. That brings us to the original motion to appoint Councilmember Schroeder. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
All right, that passes, I heard 4-0 with one abstention from Councilmember Strawn. All right, I believe that gives us an acting mayor for 2026 of Councilmember Schroeder. And that is the conclusion of our business items at this time. That then brings us to consideration of city council minutes for December 1st and December 8th of 2025. And I was reminded by Councilmember Bauer that he was not in attendance at the December 8th meeting, and so we should really take these as two separate motions, giving him the ability to abstain on that vote. Is there a motion with respect to the December 1st council minutes
So moved.
and/or any changes or corrections?
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Bauer to approve the December 1st minutes as presented. Discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those minutes are approved. Then the December 8th minutes.
Move
so-
approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder to approve the December 8th minutes. Any changes or corrections or discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention, thank you. That passes 4-0 with an abstention from Councilmember Bauer. That concludes those meeting minutes. That then brings us to the consent agenda. I'll turn it over to Mr. Trudgeon to run through the consent items under consideration this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 10A approves payments in the amount of $1,639,445.35. Item 10B approves the purchase of an unmarked police vehicle and the purchase of police radios that have advanced encryption technology. Item 10C approves the U.S. Bank and BMO Harris Bank as the city's official bank depository for city funds and designates the finance director with the authority to make electronic fund transfers. Agenda item 10D designates the Pioneer Press as the city's official newspaper. Item 10E adopts a resolution to approve the reapportionment of assessments in 2026. Item 10F approves entering into a professional services agreement with Ellers for a utility rate study. Item 10G approves the annual contract with Northeast Youth and Family Services for its work in the Roseville community. Agenda item 10H approves entering into a professional service agreement with Tubman in the amount of $20,000 to provide services to victims facing relationship violence and sexual assault trauma. Item 10I approves the Community Development Department Codes Coordinator Building Official to act as the Assistant Weed Inspector to help the mayor out with his local weed inspector role in the city. Item 10J approves entering into a collective bargaining agreement with Roseville Police Officers LELS Local 112 for the years of 26 and 27. This agreement provides cost of living adjustments in each year of the contract and a market adjustment in 2027 to address wage disparities with peer departments. Sufficient funds were provided in the 2026 budget to cover the cost of the contract for this coming year, or this year. The proposed contract was recently approved by the Local 112 members. Item 10K approves the annual sign permits in 2026 for a variety of city-led and sponsored events. And then finally, item 10L authorizes staff to seek donations to help defray costs of city-hosted events. And that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Is there a motion from the
So
council?
moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Bauer to approve the consent items as presented. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. That passes unanimously, and those items are approved. Excuse me. That brings us then to future agenda review. Mr. Trudgeon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a series of meetings here in January. Our next meeting is next Monday. We'll have both a city council meeting and EDA meeting. We're going to switch up the order a little bit. We're going to have the city council meeting first because we do want to make sure we spend the right amount of time for our strategic plan discussion. However, at the beginning of the work session there, we will discuss the police department's Axon contract. I believe the chief had sent out some information about that. Want to have a conversation and provide the council some background on that, talk about some potential next steps. And then we want to have a staff-led update on the strategic plan, the stuff that we've been working on the last part of this last year about the objectives, talk about what we're going to be doing this year, how we're going to integrate that into the 27 budget process. So we have, I think, a lot of good work, so we're excited to share that with all of you. After that, then we'll go into an EDA meeting. We'll have, as it's the first meeting of the year, the election of the officers, recognize recipients of the annual Sustainable Steward Award. We want to discuss the one-time request by Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity regarding the land trust program. This is on the November EDA meeting. If you remember, we had to push that. And then a very large, broad discussion about the housing programs and ongoing EDA funding. We're going to provide an analysis of all the different funds and the balances and how potentially we could reallocate on those funds. There are some of our programs that are starting to run out of money, so we wanted to call that out. We have some recommendations, but that's all they are, and we're looking forward to discussion. We also want to talk about the LAHA, that's the sales tax funding. We think we can use it in very select cases for some of our existing programs, but for the most part, we have to use it for new programming. So while we don't have any concrete ideas, we want to start the conversation with the council on how we can look at using those.
Are there any plans to have any kind of the business side or industry commercial side of the EDA discussion? as
This
well?
is just the housing we're going to have.
In the future, or?
Yeah, we certainly can. Yeah. But we do mention we do have some balance in the business side of it too. We mentioned that. That's certainly something that could be part of if you want to reallocate towards housing, but I'm not,
We'll have a discussion, I guess, at that meeting. Too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that should be a pretty full meeting with both of those types of meetings and the topics there. On the 26th, we are going to have a couple of proclamations. We'll have Liz Nowak from Visit Roseville, President and CEO. She's been in the role for about a year, just to stop by, say hello, and talk about what we've done the last year. We have a conditional use at 2150 Hamlin Avenue. That's an auto repair shop. I would also mention, it's not listed on here, we do, on the consent agenda, plan to bring forward the contract for the consultant to work on the Aldine right-of-way. The total cost of the consulting work as well as the arborist that we're looking to have will exceed $10,000, so I just want to make sure we're bringing it forward. It's a consent agenda item, and it's just about the contract. It's not the intention of staff, or nor will we be prepared to be talking about the issues, the pros and cons of it. That will come at a later date. I think we all agree we need to have the study begun and done, and bring back that information. But I just want to give you a heads up on it. That's on the consent agenda. You can see the meetings in February. I would note we have 2 nights right now scheduled for commission interviews, the 17th and the 19th. I think with 7 vacancies, we probably may need to have 2 nights to do that. So just keep that in mind, and we have a meeting on February 23rd. That's what I have for you tonight.
And then we just talked about this evening on the 26th, potentially having something from
Yes.
Mike Bradley about the
Yep.
broadband franchising and things like that.
Exactly.
All right. All right, and that probably might be a good opportunity to bring back the legislative priorities, depending on where they are in the drafting
Yep,
process.
yeah, I think we should be able to do that.
Other questions about the future agenda or councilmember initiated items for future agendas? Or liaison reports or announcements from council members? Hearing none, the only item we have remaining on our agenda this evening, our first meeting of the new year, is to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I think it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to adjourn. There is no discussion on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We are adjourned at 7:55 PM. Thank you, everyone.